Hello everyone and welcome to Sunburned. Albino ranks every Kingdom Hearts game from worst to best that I've actually played, which just means no mobile game, and no game Square Enix later just turned into a movie because they were like, hey, you don't need to play this game anyway. So I never played the game versions of Recoded or 358 divided by 2 days. I know they were a slog to watch though for differing reasons, so I imagine they wouldn't have ranked that high anyway. That means we're working with all three main games, Chain of Memories, Birth by Sleep, Dream Drop Distance, A Fragmentary Passage, and just for fun, Melody of Memory. So 8 total titles to sink my KH-loving teeth into like a delectable sea salt ice cream and then wince in pain because my teeth are sensitive to cold. Starting from worst and working our way to best. Number 8, Melody of Memory. As a Guitar Hero slash Rock Band aficionado, playing a rhythm game on a controller makes me feel decidedly un-rock and roll, but Melody of Memory is decent. Everyone knew Kingdom Hearts had a great soundtrack forever, so this was something people passively thought would be neat if it happened, until they saw the $40 price tag and were like, nah, my imagination is free. You could definitely be forgiven for skipping this one, maybe even applauded for your fiscal responsibility, but it was interesting for like a day or two, and they hid some fake lore in the story so you could at least watch the cutscenes online. Number 7, A Fragmentary Passage. A glorified tech demo can only go so far. This game was like, what, an hour? I barely remember what it actually consisted of other than the introduction of Grand Magic and the sort of connecting bridge of combat systems that would evolve into Kingdom Hearts 3. And I remember loving those things. The game felt pointless, but it was fun to play and exciting as a window into the future. I kind of wish they kept the cosmetic system it introduced too. Like, part of it feels like it cheapens things or overrides the seriousness of the narrative, but at the same time, the narrative is Kingdom Hearts, you know? Number 6, Birth by Sleep. I have no problems with Birth by Sleep's story, but my god, it's the biggest chore to play. The combat is stiffer than a corpse with a boner. It feels so bad in every respect. The command deck takes some getting used to. I definitely prefer the main game's combat without it, but it's not the worst on its own. It's just attached to the laggiest, most unintuitive combat of all time. So many finishers lock you onto the ground even after you've been air comboing the entire time, so the enemy will just hover right over your finisher and make you look like it's your first day on the job. And every normal attack ender has about 6 minutes of end lag, so you just sit there mashing X while your character falls haplessly to the ground until they randomly get the stamina back to take another stab at it. Platforming is a joke. Your character has to take a nap every time they land on the ground before their legs will move again. Everything is just stiff, slow, unpolished, and gross. Birth by Sleep is also very complicated in terms of melding commands and creating new ones. You don't really figure stuff out on your own. You just need to look up how to make all the necessary commands like XP Walker and Second Chance and whatnot, or you're actively hurting yourself. The idea of playing as 3 different characters is cool initially until you finally get a powerful command deck going with somebody. Just have to start back over at level 1 with the next guy. The last time I tried to stream this game, I couldn't finish it. I was just having a horrendous time, and on Proud Mode you've got certain abject horseshit encounters like Terra vs. Zack and the Colosseum that make me question whether the game was ever playtested. I think Dream Drop Distance is kind of boring, but that's better than actively suffering in this game. If fun were all that mattered, Birth by Sleep would be dead last in the ranking, but because it does have an important and generally engaging story, it's carried by that aspect, just not very far. Number 5, Dream Drop Distance. Yeah, the drop mechanic sucks ass. It would have been better to just set up coherent moments in the story for each character to drop and lock you into playing for a consistent amount of progress. That said, the combat in this game is better, smoother, still not great, but not garbage, and I'm a big fan of the Dream Eaters. I name each of them after the Pokemon they most resemble because I'm so creative, and I make sure Sora and Riku have completely different ones on their respective teams so they don't overlap. With both this game and Birth by Sleep, none of the worlds feel fully realized. It doesn't feel like it counts. The fact that these were handhelds is so readily apparent, and everything in it just has a cheap veil over it to where I'm like, okay, they did Lilo and Stitch World kind of, but they didn't really because it's not in any of the main games. Like, you show me Lilo and Stitch World in Kingdom Hearts 4, and then I'll be like, okay, they did Lilo and Stitch World. I honestly understand people who played Kingdom Hearts and only played 1, 2, and 3 despite everyone telling them not to, because I wish that were possible to do while still having a damn clue about anything. I don't want to have to play this series' next installment on a fucking Apple Watch. I wish the franchise didn't have console ADD. We've got the all-in-one collection now, but nobody who actually grew up with this series did. We either copped every handheld on the market, or we were simply out of the loop. And they still want to release mobile trash every chance they get. A little lore tidbit here, a companion story there, barely a game behind any of it. It's just annoying. Anyway, Dream Drop Distance added flow motion mechanics, which were occasionally useful for getting around, but as a combat additive, they just felt lame to use. Dream Drop Distance in general was pretty lame, but that's the worst of its crimes. Number 4, Chain of Memories. Before we go any further, I need to properly illustrate what a leap in quality this slot is from the last one. If Dream Drop Distance was a DDD tier game, I would give Chain of Memories a B+. The Chain of Memories enjoyer has logged on, ladies and gentlemen, and I actually prefer the Game Boy Advance version to the Final Mix version. It's just much tighter, literally. The map and the combat space is squeezed together so nicely that it really speeds everything up. Your attacks land more often, the AoEs are more effective, and the enemies can't run too far away. This is the only handheld KH game I like that feels like it belongs on handheld and isn't just a lower quality version of something they could have made a full game. This game was designed for Game Boy Advance and it was designed properly. I really like the card battling system. I'm a deck builder enthusiast, I like Slay the Spire, Monster Train, etc., and as a kid this was my first taste of that. Chain of Memories also has some of my favorite story moments in the franchise. Personally, I think Kingdom Hearts is at its best narratively when it is bending Sora over and pillaging his anus, when every force in the universe is just trying to break his goddamn will. That is the most gripping stuff they can do. And Larxene's entire arc with Sora, where she's taunting and toying with him the whole game while Naminé replaces his memories, just some of the most satisfying bullying I've ever seen. Like, you go, Larxene, add some more depth to his character, it's a treat to watch. Chain of Memories can be pretty grindy, but getting a good card feels so good, and late game farming methods are decently paced, and being able to prioritize whether you want to level up HP, CP, or learn a new sleight of hand on each individual level is some nice freedom. Plus, you get to play as Dark Mode Riku and use the OP attacks he uses against you, and that's a pretty enjoyable power trip. Number 3, Kingdom Hearts. The Kingdom Hearts remake debate is ongoing, and it's a layered discussion. Does the original Kingdom Hearts need a remake? I say it depends on which version you're talking about. If you're talking about the OG game on PS2, I say absolutely. I think a lot of people's nostalgia has either been tainted by the Final Mix version or they never played it on PS2 to begin with. It cannot be understated how much of a difference it makes in the Final Mix version just having Slapshot. That ultra quick combo starter ability you get early on now, that move alone will take 2 to 3 hours off your playtime all told. PS2 Kingdom Hearts is an absolute slog without it. You're going to be doing the same slow 3 or 4 hit combo all game and you'll want to never touch it again. That said, the Final Mix version also ruined Synthesis, in my opinion, just made it so much more of a pain to get everything, adding all those extra stone gimmick Heartless in every area, basically quintupled the amount of time you have to spend looting different things to make what you want. I don't even go for the Ultima weapon anymore in that game, they buffed the Divine Rose enough to where it's basically just as good anyway. But to those of you who say Kingdom Hearts doesn't need a remake, if you're playing the Final Mix version, you're already reaping the benefits of that kind of endeavor. But imagine a Kingdom Hearts that looks as good as Kingdom Hearts 3 did, or 4 now, depending on the timing. It can keep the combat simplified, but just give it some quality of life stuff like Slapshot, the flexibility of mobile and mid-air spellcasting, being able to guard in mid-air, and personally I'd kill for KH3's distance closing combo moves. Also put Magnet in there, that'd be a great time. Number 2, Kingdom Hearts 3. Uh-oh, a KH3 enjoyer has logged on too. This is too much for anyone to bear. It's funny because hating KH3 isn't even the popular opinion, it's just been done so loudly that some of them trick themselves into thinking they're the majority. The Pirates of the Caribbean world in Kingdom Hearts 3 is not only the single greatest spectacle in KH history, it's damn near the most impressive thing that ever happened on the PlayStation 4, from the cutscene visuals to the open world within a world. I know some people didn't care for the mechanics, but I was in awe the entire time of what a technological marvel it was. Some of the worlds are under-realized, I'd even say most of them weren't anything special, but Kingdom Hearts 3's combat, minus the attraction commands, feels so damn good. You're just a speedy wrecking ball out there zipping around unleashing hell on your opponents. Magic is the best it's ever felt, the grand magic commands you build up feel appropriately devastating. They also added a cheat menu later on with the easy codes and pro codes, and those are underrated game changers for replayability. If you don't do an entire playthrough with the one-shot cheat on, I have to assume you don't like Joy. Parts of the individual world stories were apparently stifled by Disney, so it might be a sign that Square Enix should just be done with the company entirely. Given how much of a neutered welcome Disney let him have in Smash, I've said this for a while, but it's time for Kingdom Hearts to stop being about Disney and start going to the worlds of other video games. You can keep Donald and Goofy, and the King for however important he remains, but if Disney's being a bitch, then this is how you minimize their involvement while maintaining the freedom that game worlds and their franchises companies would assuredly give you. I'm trying to see Sora go rift hopping with Ratchet and Clank, annoy the hell out of Kratos, try and keep up with Sonic, you name it, dude. The possibility abilities are way better. Anyway, Kingdom Hearts 3 is a great game, and the only one better is, number 1, Kingdom Hearts 2. I think Kingdom Hearts 2 is essentially perfect. I really don't think there's a damn thing wrong with it. It's one of my favorite games of all time. The combat is less cutscene-ish than in 3, and it's tremendous. The drive forms are awesome, and the traversal abilities they grant are dope. The worlds are all solid, except Atlantica, which is Liquid. And they did such a big gamble with the beginning of the game as Roxas, but it really pays off in my estimation, because the first time I played, I didn't want to go back to being Sora. KH2's story is much more streamlined and digestible while still being intriguing. The character redesigns are great. Sora's black clothes are so stylish compared to his stupid previous outfit, it's unreal. Synthesis is also perfect in this game. It's just done super intuitively, and farming is easy and you get bonuses for collecting materials. It's rewarding AF. Kingdom Hearts 2 is just the premier Kingdom Hearts game, and falling short of that as a sequel just means you didn't quite reach perfection. If Kingdom Hearts 4 doesn't quite get there either, and there's another firestorm about it not being the best game despite being a good game, I'm gonna be so exhausted with the fanbase. Well, that's going to do it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, you can like, share, and subscribe. Follow me on Twitter at Sunburned Albino. Watch all my videos in an all-for-one package, and I'll see you guys next time.